You thought I was going to go somewhere else with that, but I wasn't. Well, hello there. My name is HW. Thank you so much for watching Tone Jigga TV. My friends, today we are going to talk about 3 of the absolute most basic, bring it back to the basics. It's the must-know tricks, tips for how to dial in your Kemper. I got this question recently in an email. Somebody asked me kind of like, where do you start with dialing in the Kemper? And I went, all right, well, let's cover that. Let me make a video on that. So this is the 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, that I use to sort of dial in the tone on my Kemper. So let's check it out. First of all, I'm playing this profile right here. It's a 62 Magnatone 440 1.3. And I didn't just choose it because it sounds super awesome and vintage with this 67 330 Trini Lopez model, excuse me. Obviously like a 335, but with Trini's appointments. And it sounds great, but where I want to start is the definition control. The definition control is a very unique control in the Kemper. I have heard it said off the record that it makes circuits bigger and smaller, but what you can kind of think of it as, it's doing a couple things. I would describe it this way. It's a little bit like a tilt EQ, except way better, because it's controlling like how much low end sort of goes into that, maybe like the gain stage, which is a popular thing you would do in an amp, reduce some of the gain to get more out of it. And so that gives it this vibe of less definition, is very vintagey and bassy and low sort of grumbly in the low end, almost too much bass. But at the same time, you get, on the higher end, you're going to get a lot more defined low end and a lot more, you'll hear some of the clarity come out. So I chose this profile because if we look in here, definition is on 0.5, very low definition, very low. But you get this wonderful, beautiful sounding sort of Magnavox tone, you know? It's beautiful, it's lo-fi, and you really get all that. Beautiful lo-fi, very woolly, old school, reminds me of a tweed. This is a 62 Magnavox, so it came out with a very low definition, which is accurate to the sound. Let's move this up. Look with me on the Kemper real quick. Look at this definition. We're gonna roll it up to 5. Now this to me is where I like to see a lot of profiles come out, right about 5. We can ignore the rest of these controls for the time being, but that definition control on 5 is gonna sound like this. Do you hear that extra sort of definition? Now here's when I roll it back down. Now here's when I roll it back to 5. You just hear the notes a little more defined. Definition is really the name I would give it. It's a beautiful control. It kind of makes it brighter. Now, if I run it way up, I might like what it does, but it does this. Now I'll roll it back down to 5. It's really going to give you just a beautiful array of how much definition do you want, how defined do you want that tone, or how sort of vintage and lo-fi, because you can also go down here. It's a little more than just, you know, a tilt EQ. It's actually doing more than that. It's definitely affecting the top end and the presence. So let's do this. Let's leave this control at like 3.5 for this profile, so we get a nice happy medium. Yeah, that sounds really good to me. Okay, definition control is number 1. Number 2, let's talk about the EQ. The EQ you can find by touching EQ on the Kemper. It's also these EQs right here, these EQ knobs here. Bass, middle, treble, presence. They're beautiful, they're great. You can make this thing super mid-rangey and pull all the bass and the treble out, and it's gonna sound like this. Beautiful. You can, of course, try to scoop it out, and maybe we make it more Fendery, and we'll even add a little high-end presence, and we'll see what this sounds like. Here we go. Throw it on the neck for this. Wonderful little crunchy grind there. You could turn down the gain and you would get this. If I pull on this Bixby anymore, we're really going to go out of tune, so I don't want to do that. So running on this Magna Tone 440, it's a Magnavox amp. You can make it sort of that style just by touching these EQs here. But there's a really cool thing you can do with the EQ. You can hold down EQ and you can put position pre. And now we're EQing the guitar before we're EQing the profile itself. So it's really like having an EQ in the chain of your guitar into the Kemper, but it's like having an EQ up here in the front of the tone stack, or in front of, you know, the compressor or the signal or whatever. So it's really placing it right here before the amplifier. That would be like a Boss GE7 EQ in your chain. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scoop the mid-range out of here. And now let's do this. Let's leave that on. And whoops, there we go. Let's leave that on. And here we go. Here is with the mid-range down. beautiful. Now let me turn the mid-range up, and we're gonna add mid-range to the guitar. Nice and woolly and growly and smoky and all those good words. And I freaking love that. That's beautiful. Now, one last thing. Let me jump. Here's number 3. That was number 2. So number 1, EQ definition control. That's like the number 1 thing I use to get the sound that I want out of the Kemper. Number 2 is definitely the EQ. Pre and post. Do you want it pre or post? Do you want to edit the sound of the profile or edit the sound of the guitar pickups? And now I'm going to leave all that stuff kind of flat. And let me put the gain back where we had it. And so here's the actually, we don't even need this profile. Let's jump over here to, oh, don't look at this. You might see some Tone Jiggy stuff that hasn't even been announced yet. Like, I don't know, an exclusive partnership or something that I can't tell you about. I can't tell you. Don't ask, okay? Don't. Stop trying to zoom up on this screen, all right? I'm not gonna tell you. It's big. It's really big. What do you want to say? It's really big. Sorry, I can't tell you. Okay, here is like an all-time favorite profile of mine. 68 Purple Plexi V2. There's a Purple Plexi hiding back there somewhere. And it's beautiful, it's lovely. You're gonna hear it, it sounds like this. Let me throw it on the bridge, and it just sounds, got a little verb on it, sounds like this. Come on, sounds like a Plexi. That sounds like my amp. Sounds like my Pro Plexi. If you want to dial this thing in, man, you could do whatever you want. You could boost this up. You could bring the gain up and down. You could do the definition. Where's the definition control? A little higher, 6.2. You could bring it up. You could bring it down. What I want to show you is the last thing that you might need to know about the Kemper is the high and low shifts. To me, this is where I shelve some high end and actually shift some high end and some low end. You can go watch the videos about the high and low shift if you want a little more in depth on what it's doing and what it's not doing. They're not shelves, so they're a little bit different. But what you can still kind of use them in a similar fashion. Let's say I want a little less high end. I don't want all that plexi, really bright, chimey, not chimey, but that present-y quality. Let's say I want to bring some of that high end down a little bit. I'm going to bring this high shift down to half. And now we're going to get a little more of like a finished, mix ready, plexi kind of. Beautiful, lovely sort of plexi tone. You know, you can do whatever you want with a sound like this. Maybe you want to really go crazy and you go, I don't even want it to sound like a plexi, like a 412. I want to shift that low end way high up, and now I want it to sound like a completely different amp. It's going to sound ridiculous. It's going to sound like we put a plexi through an 8-inch speaker. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. You could, I suppose, use this to just like make it sound like a smaller amp. You could keep trying to get that low end out. That sounds like a combo plexi. And you could also, I mean, you could add in some low-end girth, and you could really go for, yeah, that'll work. And that, my friends, is like the 3 must-know tips, the must-know strategies for dialing in your Kemper. If you know those, you are off to the races, and you are going to be able to use this thing. And by far, and I'll make another video about this, you're going to be able to get better results than bringing a tube amp to the gig. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Better results than bringing a tube amp to the gig. I've been HW. Thanks so much for watching Tone Junkie TV.